Jason.
Hi.
Acting for more than one party in a transaction
I do
without
this all the
everybody's
time.
consent.
And fill out the contract. Just kidding.
He's their lender and their agent.
Right, lender and their agent. And I'm done doing business in everywhere. So like, this is super important because like, while you, like, as a lender, I can be a lender. I cannot advise people how to fill out a purchase contract. Like, that's out of my licensure. Do I know how to do it? Yeah. If I tell someone how to do it, I can lose my lending license, right? So even in real estate, if you're doing real estate, you can get in trouble because when you start, so like you talk with someone who says, hey, I want to sell my house, or hey, I want to buy my house, then what do you do?
I'm going to sell my house.
No, like if I was like, hey, Stephanie, help me sell my house, what's the first thing you're going to do?
I'm going to get a listing agreement if you're going to sell your house.
And then I sign it.
Yep.
And then you market my property. But if I was like, hey, Stephanie, I'm going to use you for sure. I need to buy a house in the next 6 months. I'm going to use you. Then what do? The buyer broker agreement, right?
Yeah, but people don't use those these days. They don't do them until they write an offer, when actually, anytime you go to show a home, you are supposed to have a buyer broker agreement.
Why?
Well, to protect yourself, because it's required.
Wait, how does it protect you? Like, but my clients don't want to sign anything unless I can find them a house.
Well, because you're going to work all these hours and you're not going to be paid. You're working on their behalf, like you owe them a fiduciary duty to find them a home. It would actually protect my clients because I may be looking for a similar home. But my job is to put my clients ahead of myself.
So if you don't have the buyer broker signed and you find a really good house.
I could buy it myself.
Right, because
it has happened.
Right.
Multiple times.
And there's actually, with that portion of it, there's nothing illegal or unethical about it. Because the buyers have not signed, this is what's going to happen.
Yes.
There's no legal agreement.
Yep.
So legally, before you sell or before you even look to buy, have those signed.
Yeah.
And it's really, really great. And this is a great point where you can upsell yourself and say, this is why we're signing this right now. Now, if they are really skittish, you can put in the property address. Like you say, this only pertains to this property. Like, I know you're looking on KSL and all the other whatevers. So if you find your property on your own, knock yourself out.
If you're the listing agent, you can sign an unrepresented buyer agreement. That way you're not doing the work and another agent come in and say, oh, I want to get paid when you did the work for the home. Especially if this buyer insists they don't have an agent. We just ran into that same scenario. This buyer insisted he didn't have an agent. Okay, great, we'll go out and show you. It's a long ways from here, so we'd like to, make sure you don't have an agent because we don't like to step on anyone's toes. And so, lo and behold, an hour before we're going to show that home, I get a call from this agent who's now representing this person. I said, interesting, because we've been receiving texts all morning that they do not have an agent. This is what we've been told for 24 hours. Yeah, I just talked to him last night. We are representing him. I said, well, that's not what we're being told. I said, well, you'll need to go talk to your client. And so in the meantime, my agent is talking to the buyer who's saying, I'll sign an unrepresented buyer agreement. And here's this agent trying to get paid and work her way in when the buyer is willing to say, I'm unrepresented.
Ooh. Okay. Ooh. That makes me all feisty.
No.
Okay, so the section we're talking about is the
Limited agency, I would think.
limited, yeah, more so. So if you have your, this is super fun because I worked on one of these as well as an investor. So agent came in, he had friends, acquaintances, they wanted to sell their house, right? It was investment property, he knew the tenants, okay? So he says, my friends say you're looking to sell, I would love to represent you. And they said, we don't want to pay commissions. And then he said, in that case, I would like to buy your home. So the seller saved $12,000-ish and lost about $30,000.
Yeah.
And because they didn't, but okay, I just love that story. So, but the problem is they kept asking him, so he bought it actually for a group of investors. The sellers would ask him for advice. And he said, I cannot advise you. If you want to sign, now I totally forgot the name, where you represent both sides.
Limited agency.
Limited agency. So I'll talk to you about your best interest. I'll talk to them about their best interest, and I'm not going to divulge information. It becomes really very difficult. But without that, when they maintained they didn't want to be represented, he ended up telling them, I'm a fiduciary for my buyers. Look up what that means. Basically, everything I tell you, you could almost take and do the opposite. I'm representing these guys and their best interest, and it's my legal duty to take care of them. So his buyers came in low because he talked to the sellers and found out what price they were willing to go, which he knew was way below fair market. Anyway, so the problem is, if both parties are represented, like what you talked about, and the clients talk to the clients, and one of the agents is there, so like that one agent, like, so let's say like in my situation where the seller, let's say they were represented, but the buyer's agent comes in with his investors and they're talking to the client directly and getting inside information.
Interesting. I have a couple of examples.
Well, how would that play out? Like, would it make to the grievance committee?
They've got an agent, but they're talking to the sellers directly.
Yeah, so the seller has an agent. Seller's agent is unavailable for a minute. So the buyer's agent talks directly to the seller and negotiates.
If the listing agent is fine with that, gives her permission, and the seller says they don't mind, I'm still stuck back on the fact that if he goes in unrepresented and gets them to agree to sell their home way below market value, is he dealing honestly with all parties? So I'm still stuck on that one.
Yeah.
There's the honesty issue.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
you do have an obligation to treat all parties fairly.
Yeah.
And you can say, hey, this is fair market value, but if you're not going to pay any commissions, how do you feel about this part? But they should know what the fair value is to begin with.
Yeah, how would you?
Which leads us into a lot of what's happening now with people who are coming out of forbearance. And you get all these groups coming in saying, hey, you're coming out of forbearance, you don't want to go to foreclosure, we'll buy your home. And they're buying them at significant discounts.
Or you have the big box buyers
Yeah.
saying this is what your house is worth. Actually, Marisa sent me an offer from a big box buyer that I won't disclose, and it was tens of thousands
Yeah.
under fair market value. And they said, this is about what houses are going in your neighborhood. This is what we'll buy it for. Close within a few days.
Is there a realtor associated with that big box place?
There wasn't on the offer letter. I don't know how that works. But I know that there is large discount brokerages that claim to be realtors that frequently violate code of ethics
Yes.
things. And if you run into that, turn them in. Write them up as a realtor.
Yeah, better to have them out of the game. So I've run into a couple related items as a home inspector. One where I was doing this little inspection, and the buyer walks up and he hands me $40 and he says, "Go easy on me." And I'm like, no, not for $40, even if I was dishonest. The other one was is a little more applicable to realtors, where and this happened, of course, a number of times, where you get the realtor kind of corner me before the inspection. He says, "Hey, I need this deal to go through."
Ethics violation, just
Yeah.
FYI.
Yeah. And I'm like, I just learned that I don't want to work with you. And so when he thought he was punishing me for not continuing to work with me, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, yeah. So back to this, like acting for more than one party without the consent. So if you as an agent are talking to the other side, if you're representing the buyer and you're talking to the seller without the agent's permission, What are the implications there without everyone's consent? Because I hear this happen all the time. My agent is on vacation.
Yeah.
I couldn't get a hold of the other side, so we're contacting the client.
Or the seller came home while we were doing our home inspection. That typically happens. I mean, it happens. I just call the listing agent and I say, hey, we were doing our inspection and Joe came home and he was telling us about X, Y, and Z. But I would always call the other agent and disclose this is what we talked about, because I don't want them to think I was talking to their client without them there and trying to keep things off the record. So it can be innocent. So I don't know if you could prove that there was a violation, because I can't control when someone comes home.
Right.
But this right here, if you are representing both sides as a listing agent and you get a buyer that comes in, you are required to have a limited agency agreement as part of your offer. Not later. It has to be accepted at the same time as your contract.
What does the limited agency cover?
So it explains exactly what you were saying. I have a fiduciary duty. Like, I can no longer, I'm going to act more as a transaction agent. I'm going to, listen to what the buyer side wants and what the seller side wants, and I'm going to relay that information. But I can't give you advice, and I can't give you advice. I can't disclose to the buyer side that, hey, the seller's desperate to sell. He's willing to take $20,000 less. I can't disclose to the sellers that this is the buyer's dream home. They're willing to waive appraisal. I can't do that. You can give the information back and forth, but both parties have to agree up front that they're going to be represented by the same agent. My own experience is that when you do limited agency, this is where your problems come.
Yeah, it's really
These
difficult.
are your troublesome files. It would be better to refer that, the buyer to another agent. That way they have their own representation. That way you can defend your client, and have their back versus just passing paper back and forth.
Well, and also you'll need limited agency if it's someone else in your office.
Yes.
And some require it if it's within the same company, even if it's a different office.
And this is critical because a lot of people don't realize that when you're an agent, you represent not only your seller, but you represent all the listings in your brokerage.
Yeah,
You're
it's
all
your
part of the
broker's
same
license.
brokerage. Yeah, you represent all of them. So if you're doing an open house for another agent and it's not your listing, you're still representing the seller. Yeah, even if you're here to pick up buyers. And people need to recognize that, because I've been to open houses and it was another brokerage and the agent was saying, oh, I don't represent the seller, I'm just here doing an open house for another agent. So I pulled them aside and said, you do represent the seller. That is what you're doing. You're in your seller's house, you're selling their house for another agent. Your brokerage has this listed.
Yeah.
So again, be clear, be kind, and just take that little moment versus saying, hey broker, your agent wasn't totally honest with people at the open house.
Let me ask you this, Stephanie. I ran into a deal with my son recently where, let's say that I'm with Equity,
Okay.
and there's a million Equity offices, and let's say I'm with Equity Moab, and the other side is with Equity Logan.
Okay.
Do we still need to do the
Limited agency?
limited agency?
That's a good question, because now a broker can be over multiple offices. I guess it would depend on if they have the same principal broker over both offices, because are the different franchises all within one? I don't know that, to be totally honest.
Okay.
That's a good question. That's a Peter question.
Peter.
Peter
Yeah.
Christensen, yeah.
The way,
Yeah.
the way I understand it, if the broker is the same, it is required, because it's not the individual real estate agent who's doing that. It's all under the broker's
Broker's
license. The
license.
broker's handling it. So if the broker's different, as far as I understand it, limited agency is not required. But some companies still do it even though it's a different broker. Because here's the truth of the matter. So it's limited agency. You don't have your full freedom. You can't use all of your knowledge. Your agency is limited. And that's the way to look at it. Is for any reason, do you need to withhold information from the other side that you know? So,
I think exactly the same thing. Find out if they've got the same principal broker. And if they don't, you're probably fine to not have limited agency. But again, check with your brokerage.
yeah,
Okay.
let's check. Your broker will make that call.
Yeah.
Ask the broker.
Yes.
That's kind of the
Ask
standard
your
answer
Yes,
for everything.
your broker. That's a good point.
Yeah, and especially where everybody's new that's watching this, the answer to everything is ask your broker. Is that an overgeneral statement?
Not all brokers are created equally. This we have to admit.
Yeah.
And there's times I'll run it by 2 or 3 brokers, and some who have been like, representing the MLS, so we'll have different understanding just to get everyone's perspective, but then always go back to what your broker says. And then maybe you have to educate your broker and say, well, I did talk to somebody else in passing, and this is what they said. And sometimes that will change their thinking as well.
Okay, I think that we've done that one justice.
Talk that one to death.
Acting like an agent without a license. I know you've got a good story on that, and we'll do that in the next segment. Okay, let's see. I'm going to make sure that there's no surprises. How do your batteries look on your jiggers? Says still full.
Yeah, mine too.
Okay. Well, we're definitely getting some content here.
Yeah.
We'll fill your
The
hours.
longest 2-hour session.
How are you guys on time?
I need to go by 1.
Yeah, I do.
What
that
time
would
is
be
it?
good. 12:23. Can we get through 3
Okay.
more sections at least?
A few more,
Let's do it.
yes. All right, so we'll start here. Acting like an agent without a license. And I presume that means a realtor license.
Yes.
007.
Do you have a story about that one, Steph?
Yeah, just a little bit of one. People try to act like an agent without a license. I mean, honestly, during the short sale years, we saw a lot of people coming in and buying homes, negotiating short sales for people. To negotiate a short sale, you need to have a real estate license or be an attorney. So I'm assuming by this, and we're talking about an agent who does not have an active license, whether they've let it expire or they didn't get their CE in.
It's coming.
It's coming. Yeah, you've got everything coming, but you're not signed up with a brokerage yet. So that is illegal, and you do need to have a license. I was just talking with a broker today who said that an agent who was hit with an $8,000 fine for a transaction that was conducted in 2018. So you're essentially going to give up all of that commission. Pretty much this is what happens. You're going to give up all of that commission, and you're going to be hit with a fine. And one thing we are seeing from the division is that fines are increasing.
They should be.
They should be. I mean,
Commissions are increasing, house prices are increasing.
yeah.
I was-
And responsibility. I mean, if you give someone a little slap on the wrist, they're going to continue to do it. But, if you
Right.
make it a little bit heftier,
Charge me 8,000 to make 12,000?
yeah, I might think about it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about, let's say, because you guys, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I do CE
Really?
for realtors. Yeah.
That's awesome. I
And
need about 13 hours before February. Can this count?
actually, it does.
Does it?
Yeah, you.
Sweet.
I'm pretty sure you don't need 12 hours of new agent training.
Do you need ethics?
I do have to take code of ethics now. Yeah.
Yeah.
This Saturday, 9 to noon, my office.
Saturday.
So I get a lot of realtors who, like me, wait till the very last minute to do the CE, and then they're like, "Hurry up and report my stuff." That never happens.
That's on you. That is not on Garth. That is on the agent.
But I can't blame them too much because I'm that person as well. So the thing is, okay, here comes the 31st, and maybe they've got their CE done or almost done. I haven't reported it yet. We're going into the beginning of the month. But from my understanding, just me reporting it doesn't mean they've got their license again.
It's true.
Right.
There's more paperwork to fill
Right.
out. So there will be a window of time, maybe 3 days, maybe a week, where they were licensed and they're going to be licensed again, but for that week, they're not licensed. Does that fit into this?
Yeah, it does.
That'd probably be the highest offending part of it, right? Where they know what they're doing. They have clients. The clients want to make a move on it. Their license is coming, but they're showing houses.
There's a
You're not
simple
gonna write an
solution
offer.
to that. You have somebody else do it for you. You pay them a referral fee. You stay within the law.
Okay.
And that is on you. Like, you have a responsibility. It's not Garth's job, it's not anyone else's job, it's not the division's job to make sure you have everything in on time. A lot of those people are now working remotely. We have so many more agents now. I know that they don't have enough staff to keep up with everybody in the timeliest manner. You have an obligation to get your stuff done. Give yourself a month to get this all turned in so that you can do your job. It's not that hard. Stay up instead of watching, Game of Thrones for 3 hours, go take a CE class. I have very little patience for that.
Yeah,
It's called being professional.
and you are the ultimate professional, and there's people like me in the world.
I am not the ultimate professional, as the 8th graders would tell you on my drive to school today.
Acting like an agent without a license. Do you have a good story, Jason?
Well, I actually have people come to me every once in a while because I know how to fill out a purchase contract, right?
Yes, you do.
So if they said, hey, we've got a home, and I say, let me help you out. Oh, wait, maybe you should phrase it this way, or maybe you should do that. That's a violation.
Because you're without a realtor license.
I am not a licensed real estate agent.
So how do you answer that? Because you obviously want these realtors to do the job right. You want them to not feel like you stiff-armed them. You need their
Well, if they have a
relationship.
real estate agent, I have the real estate agent fill it out. Now, if a real estate agent says, how would you like the wording on these repairs? I can say, this is how we would like to see that. Like, this is how you cannot kill yourself in underwriting.
Oh, but your pen does not go on that document.
Right.
You
Right.
can be sitting next to the pen.
I can't even advise them on how to fill it out. I can say, like, so they say, home inspection came back, says the roof sucks. Actually, I had one came, we got the home inspection for some reason, and it said the water heater sucks. That was on the home inspection, verbatim. Underwriter got a hold of it and said, now the water heater needs to be replaced. Right? So, because it sucks, and all parties knew, but it was a functioning water heater. And yes, it's old, and yes, it was
But it
in need of
functions.
being replaced. But it wasn't a repair that anybody had money for right then, right? So I can say, like they say, hey, we've got this home inspection, hey, we've got a water heater, hey, what do you want to do? And I say, don't put that on addendum. Don't give me a copy of the home inspection. Like, I don't want that for the same reason, like, you do a home inspection if there is an issue and if you want me to review it, but also maybe if you want me to kill the loan, give me the home inspection. Like, if I have knowledge of something, I'm supposed to submit it, right? So, like, I can say, this is the best way to make a deal go forward. I cannot say, do your purchase contract like this.
And this actually happens with title too, where people ask an escrow officer, and like I know mine will say, I'm not a realtor, I can't give you advice, you should talk to your realtor. And 9 times out of 10, it's someone who did it without an agent. So,
Yeah, and we were talking about the cost of an education earlier. You get into things like that and you start thinking you can save a few $1,000s. And Jason's got another story where somebody saved a few $1,000s and cost themselves, what was it, 600,000, something like that?
Millions.
Yeah.
So, they saved the commission by not paying an agent. Sold their house, $300,000. A developer came in for $330,000. They divvied up the extra $30,000 among their grandchildren and kids, and that was awesome. This is the property in Bluffdale, Riverton, where Home Depot and Walmart and I think Lowe's are. So the investor bought it for $350,000 and sold it for about $3 million. So you can save a lot of money by not using an agent, and you can also lose a lot of money. So, highest and best use, right?
Yes.
They are sworn to know. That's an ethics class.